Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I have got part 1 of my 10 cards 1 kit using the Simon Says Stamp October 2019 card kit. And this card kit came with a really beautiful floral stamp. It has this huge bouquet and then a few smaller florals and leaves that you can add into this. And then a bunch of sentiments, some that were larger and some that were smaller that you can sort of mix and match together to create all kinds of different thank you and encouragement cards. So the pattern paper that was included in this is also really beautiful, but I had a hard time getting this large floral stamp to sort of coordinate, at least for me, with the papers that were included. So what I've decided to do here is I'm going to focus these first 5 cards on just that floral stamp, and I will move it around to create sort of different looks and positions, and then I will focus the next 5 cards using the pattern papers, and I will use the sentiment stamps for all of the cards. So I'm going to go ahead and jump here into card number 1. I have stamped out this bouquet onto some watercolor paper. I'm using my usual Fabriano 140-pound hot press watercolor paper. And then I've got my Gansai Tambi watercolors, my Santa Fe brushes, and of course I have stamped this using my Simon Says Stamp black ink. So I'm going to do really some simple layering here, mostly 2 tones of colors, just laying down a lighter color and then adding in the dark and just sort of letting the watercolor do their thing and mix together to give me some variation and dimension. Now that my panel is finished and dry, I'm going to trim this down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I'll add some foam tape to the back, and I'm going to place this on top of one of the black card bases. For the inside, I'm on a Neenah panel trimmed to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "I can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you." I've grabbed an extra piece of the pattern paper. This was a really pretty script paper, and I just trimmed off one line of that, added some Scor-Tape to the back, and I'll place this along the bottom of my panel. Trim off that excess there. Then I'll add some ATG to the back of that and place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 1. Here for card number 2, I decided I wanted to do some Copic coloring. So I've again got a Neenah panel trimmed to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I've laid out this bouquet here as well as one of the sentiments, and I'm going to stamp this out using my Memento Tuxedo black ink. This is my favorite ink to use whenever I'm using my Copics. So here I've grabbed my Copics and I'm going to do 2 colors of green here. I will lay down the lighter color and then add in a little bit of shading with the darker. I'm going to use just a simple yellow for the inside of my flowers, and then I decided I wanted to keep these white. So the way that I did that was I just kept the white of the background, and then I grabbed my very lightest gray marker and I will go in and just add a few shadows to give those a little bit of dimension. I'm going to add some ATG here to the back of that panel, and I'll place that on top of my card base. This is made from MFT's Gumdrop Green. For the inside, I've combined 2 of those sentiments to read "You're amazing. Thank you for loving me when I needed it the most." Then I wanted to pull in a little more yellow from those flower centers on the front. So I've got a 1/4-inch strip of lemon drop cardstock, added some Scor-Tape to the back of that, and I'm going to run that along the bottom of that panel. I'll add some ATG to the back and place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, I'm going to do a little bit of no line coloring with my Prismacolor. So I have grabbed one of the card bases that I made from the Nina Desert Storm that was included in the card kit. So this is the full front of the card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to stamp out this floral bouquet as well as a few of the leaves and that extra flower. So you'll see that I've pulled in my Simon Says stamp Barely Beige. That is what I always use when I'm working on Nina Desert Storm for a no line color. And you'll see that it turns out a little bit gray here. So this is not an actual accurate color of this stamp pad if you were thinking about getting it. My stamp was a little dirty. I didn't realize I hadn't gotten it completely clean and there was a little bit of black left in it. So thankfully it was a very light gray that came out and I was still able to use this, but I did just want to let you know it's actually much more of a light tan color when it doesn't have that black mixed in it. So I'm skipping ahead here. It's difficult for me to get my Prismacolor coloring on camera. My hand tends to get in the way when I'm doing all the details. So I will list the Prismacolors that I used for you, but I'm basically just taking either 2 or 3 colors, blending those together, working from my lightest to my darkest, and then back out to my lightest again to smooth things. I've grabbed the sentiment here, "You couldn't be more awesome," and I'm going to stamp that out using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. You do want to be careful when you're stamping over top of the Prismacolors. They do have a waxy finish, so make sure you hit anything that's touching that colored pencil with a heat gun, or just set that off to the side to make sure it's nice and dry before you move forward with anything. I did grab one of the smaller sentiments here. I'm going to place at the bottom. This reads, "Your kindness will be remembered." Here for the inside, I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "I can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And then I wanted to pull in a little bit more of the black from the sentiment on the front. So I've grabbed a 1/4-inch strip of MFT's Black Licorice. Again, added some Scor-Tape to the back, and I'll run that along the bottom here. I'll add some ATG and place that on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 3. For card number 4, I am again going to use my Prismacolors, but I'm going to actually layer this together using some different colored cardstock for the base of my coloring. So what I'm doing here is working on my usual Nina panel. This is trimmed to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I have laid out my bouquet here. So I'm going to stamp this out. This is going to be my base layer for the design. I'm just making sure I get a nice, good impression there. I want to have a nice, crisp black line. Then I'm going to take this, I'm going to leave everything as it is, and I'm going to pull in some colored cardstock. So the first one that I'm going to use is Jelly Bean Green, that's from MFT. And then I will pull in from Paper Tray Ink Autumn Rose, a pretty purple color, and Sweet Blush, which is a really, really light pink. And I'm going to use those for my leaves and my 2 flowers. So I have again left the coloring out for you. You just can't see very much. My hands get in the way. But I'm using these as a base. So on the green, I've colored all of the leaves. I will list the Prismacolors that I've used for you on my blog post. Just going to do a blend of 2 or 3 greens for those. And then again, 2 or 3 different colors over the purple and over the pink for the flowers that I want to do in those colors. And this just gives it sort of a base color to start with. And it does give it a really different look than if you were to color directly on white. So you'll see in just a second here we go. So now I'm going to place everything together. So as I trimmed out those teeny tiny green leaves, I did go ahead and glue them down directly off camera. Now with these larger leaves, I want to add a little bit of dimension. So I'm just popping up a portion of that. I'm going to glue down sort of the back portion towards the flower, and then I want to have the leaf sort of coming up towards the person who's viewing the card. So at the very tips of those leaves, I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape. Then I'm going to sort of put this all back together like a puzzle. So I'm trimming apart these 2 flowers here. I'm going to have that larger purple flower in the center. That one's going to be completely popped up. So that'll be the last one that I put down. And I'm going to keep this smaller purple one flat. And then for the one that's shaped a little more like a tulip, I am going to pop that up just like I did with the leaves. I will glue down the bottom portion and have that foam tape popping up at the edge there. This pink one, I'll again pop up of just a few of the petals on that one. And the nice thing about having the base to place these down on is that when you're fussy cutting, if you don't get that black line perfect, or you happen to, cut a little bit too much of that off, you have the black line showing from below, so you still get that nice crisp outline for your flower. That second pink flower I did place straight down onto the cardstock, no foam tape behind that one. And here you see I'm popping up this last one completely. For the inside, I'm again on a Neenah panel. I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, "Thank you for everything." I will then cut a strip of Jelly Bean Green, again about 1/4 inch, add some Scor-Tape to the back of that, and place that across the bottom of my panel. Now you'll see there, I originally had this on a pink card base and I didn't like it. And then I put it on a Neenah card base and I didn't like that either. Finally, I've pulled in this Fuse Green base. This is from MFT. And I liked that because it matched the yellow in the center of my flowers. So I thought that worked better than the other ones. But that's why you see the different colors behind the panels as I'm adding the ATG. Of course, there I added in my inside panel, and on top here I missed a little bit of footage, but I did layer together 3 of those thanks die cuts to give that a little bit more heft and place that on the front of my card base as well. And that completed card number 4. For card number 5, I'm going to do some more Copic coloring. I'm again on my Neenah panel, trimmed to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I'm going to stamp out this floral bouquet again. Since I'm using my Copics, I'm going to grab my Memento ink and get that all stamped out. Because this panel wanted to move on me, I did ink that up really, really, really well. I'm going to press down on this, add a lot of pressure, and make sure that every point of that is connecting with my panel. Sometimes it helps just to leave the weight of your hand on it, just to let that ink soak in. But I wanted to do my best to get this in one pass because I knew that those magnets, because this is such a large stamp and it's covering so much of that panel, the magnets were not going to completely hold it there without it shifting a little. Okay, jumping into the coloring here, I am going to work from my lightest color to my medium color, then my darkest. and then I will work my way back out again. I did skip the green coloring of the leaves. I colored those exactly the same as I did for the previous Copic card. Now that my coloring is done, I'm going to add my sentiment. I've again combined two together to read, "You're amazing. Thank you for loving me when I needed it most." For the inside, I am stamping out the sentiment, "I am stronger with your support. Thank you." I wanted to match my inside stripe to the pink on the front, so I've grabbed that medium color and a scrap piece of Nina, just ran my marker over that a few times to get a nice solid line, and then I will trim out a 1/4 inch strip, add some Scor-Tape to the back, and place that along the bottom of my panel. I've added some foam tape to the back of my front panel, and I'm going to place that on top of the black card base. And again, I'll add some ATG to my inside panel and place that down as well. And that will complete card number 5. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.